to the use of those images and sound recordings. Can I please request that when councillors and members of the public are speaking, not to disclose any personal...
I haven't got it yet.
Not to disclose any personal information of an individual, as this might infringe the rights of that individual and breach data protection rules. This is a formal town council meeting and will be held using the agenda as published. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak during public open sessions, but will not be permitted to speak at other times. And when you're not speaking, will you please mute your microphone, as this will help to eliminate background noise. Thank you very much, everybody. So I think we're all here. I don't think we have any apologies. Do we have any declarations of interest, please?
Non-pecuniary item 11D.
Any further declarations of interest, please? Okay, I'm moving on. I do have one town mayor's announcement, and this is about Rose Forbes. Many of you will be aware of the recent passing of Rose Forbes at the grand age of 95. Rose served as a town councillor from 2007 to 2011. She was also very involved in other aspects of the town's life, particularly Trinity Methodist Church and the twinning with Erlensay. She loved singing, and she founded the Biggleswade Gospel Choir. Please join with me in a few moments of silence to remember Rose and her contribution to our community. Thank you, everybody. I now move on to the public open session, which is a chance for members of the public to talk to the council about anything that's on the agenda. So I have some attendees. Do any of the attendees wish to speak in this public open session? And if so, could you please raise your electronic hand, because councillors can't see you, simply your names. Does anybody wish to speak? Mr. Luke Newman, you're going to speak as an invited speaker in a moment. Did you also want to speak about something else?
No, apologies, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newman. I'm not getting any other signals from anybody, so I will move on now to the invited speakers. We've got two tonight, Jonathan Medlock and Luke Newman. And so I'd like to start, as on the agenda, with Jonathan Medlock. So could we invite Jonathan into the meeting, please? Johnny, can you hear us? You're on mute, I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. So
Excellent.
Over to you now.
Lovely, thank you. Evening, everyone. I'm just going to go straight over to a quick PowerPoint presentation. Basically, the presentation's about what I want to do on the market square regarding cafe barriers, and it'd just be easier just to go straight in and then answer any questions afterwards, if that's okay.
Yes, please do share your screen.
Share my screen. Are we good?
Yes, thank you.
Everyone's excellent. Right, you'll have to bear with me. All right, basically, I'm just going to do a very, very quick history, because there's a lot of town councillors that don't really know where Surfing Cafe comes from and where we started from. So it will be a 5-minute presentation, but I'm just going to quickly run through this so everybody is aware of where we started from. Basically, 2002, I looked at opening up a cafe in Luton. That fell through. Eventually I found an empty unit in the market square, looking a little bit tired and dilapidated. The whole of the market square looked tired at the time. Looking at putting a proven concept in, a cafe, which I'd seen plenty of in London, Hitchin, everywhere else. And I just wanted to bring that to Biggleswade. So Surfing Cafe kicked in 2003. We've been there nearly 18 years now. A community hub, that's what I always wanted, somewhere for people to meet, somewhere that could not so much promote the market square, but run alongside the charter market and just make the market square more vibrant. Obviously, it's all about the location. As we grew, we only have 18 seats inside, but we do have a very large visual impact outside. We've taken a little space where the newsagents are, and obviously through the years, working alongside the council, we have grown. I feel as though it's, you know, it has kick-started the market square. There's a lot of things that have happened in the last 18 years, but as things evolve, I think now is the time to, you know, get it right, especially with, you know, the neighbourhood plan coming into force and all the new residents that are starting to move into Biggleswade. So, you know, we've got a growing expectation to look like a smart town. I think I've always been forward thinking, so I've always generally ahead of the curve. And this is why I want to, you know, make this move now, just to complete Surfing Cafe. Obviously, I've always invested in the cafe. I've got another one in Ampthill, but I had lucky enough to have the help from Central Beds High Street Improvement Scheme to update the front of the cafe, because I wasn't going to get any help from the landlords. So I reinvested another £35,000 along with £40,000 that the town CBC invested with me. And this really will complete that. That's what I'm thinking. Everyone that comes into the town generally has a reference for the town centre, and because we are slap bang right in the middle, we've served a lot of customers, and generally they have a good reference for us. Before I started to go for this, I actually asked CBC if, you know, this would be okay, because I know that they do still own the market square. After going through 5 or 6 people, that has been, I've got documentation to say that they are okay with that, and that's the Community Highways Department, and I wouldn't need planning for that, because we would be taking them in each night. And the good thing is it'll be flexible for events. So I'll go ahead into what we're thinking about doing. We've reached our maximum amount of seats. We cannot fit any more seats inside the cafe, whether they're the outside or the inside. So we're not looking for more seating. We're just looking to enhance and add a safety barrier generally for our customers, to manage the presence of our customers, whether it's 1 or 2 entries into where our seatings are. And I think it would absolutely smarten the appearance of the cafe as well. Chairs and tables look lovely when they're empty and in nice rows, but when you have a guddle of people there, sometimes it can look a little bit untidy. And also moving forward, our long-term goal is to perhaps open later. And if we open later, we need a kind of a secure barrier. So when we've got other businesses opening, ideally the New Inn, when that happens, you know, in the summertime, we may stay open till 9 o'clock and serve a glass of wine if we go for a license. So that, you know, we just want to add to the evening economy, but at the moment we need to bounce off of someone. So this is the layout. It's the layout that everybody knows. This was agreed 3 years ago now. It's pretty much been the same for the last 8 or 9 years. So nothing's changed. At the moment with COVID, we've only got 4 tables each side when they go back out. This is the maximum of 6, but we've got a 2-metre distance between them at the moment. So if we went ahead with the barriers, you wouldn't see that amount of seating, but that is the maximum seating that we have in there, and that's been agreed by the councillors. So hopefully there wouldn't be any problem with that. So they're the barriers. Pretty much a standard high spec aluminium barrier that will slot into the ground. Don't be alarmed by this visual so far. What this shows is the marketplace opposite the New Inn, and it shows a height going up in grades. Because they're flexible, I may well end up hopefully having a couple of higher ones because it's extremely windy. Not many people want to sit that side because it's quite chilly. So I can chop and change, and we definitely wouldn't be having the really high ones. So it would be a couple of the height in the middle, 1200, but generally always 900. This is memorial view. So this is on the main part of looking out to the memorial. You can see the walkway going through the middle, and that would generally bolt in front of the bus stop shop as well. We got the chance to also promote the charter market. So if we click through, you'll see these are plain. So we're going to look for a low key. We're not going to have logos on every barrier. There's a possibility to advertise the charter market on some of them, and even perhaps come up with a slogan, welcome to Bilswade's Historic Market Square. So there's the opportunity to, have the wow factor. But that's what generally that will be the look. Secure floor fixings. So obviously I had to have a word with CBC because we want to put them in the ground. Now I know there's an issue with most of the market square where slabs are coming up, but we would be able to get them level, get them cemented in, and get them fixed resin based. It means then that we can just click them in the morning without having heavy metal weights and trying to fit 26 of those in at night. It just wouldn't be possible. So just to end that, want to reinvest in the town, constantly do. I love our town. I'm involved with the neighbourhood plan and the engagement group. I think this is a perfect time to see another new thing happen. Even though we've been there a long time, I think it's good to see that things are changing in the town, especially with new venues that are coming up. I've always worked well with the town council, and I support anything they do, and help them when there's events on the market square. So yeah, looking forward to moving ahead with it if everybody's happy.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Are we unsharing? Because I can't see anybody at the moment.
Wait a minute.
Thank you. That's better. Are there questions from councillors, please? Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for coming this evening. Really appreciate it. So as one of the newer councillors, I don't understand all of the historic agreements that are in place. And I think with the number of sort of new staff we've had recently as well, I think our institutional memory perhaps doesn't go back as far as maybe yours does. So I was wondering if you could help me out with a bit of background. So in terms of the sort of, I guess I described them as semi-permanent canopies that you have on the market square that roll away at the top but stay in situ, and the tables and chairs that you currently have. Do you make a financial contribution to those, either in sort of annual charges or rates, or are they something that you've already negotiated free of charge?
There's something that I've already negotiated free of charge with the council. We did have a point where I had to pay for market pitches on a Saturday, but as yet, I filled in the A-board and temporary street sign agreement again, but I am willing to go for negotiation again if it gets to the point that you want to charge for that. But these barriers are going to cost £12,000. So present. I'm all about getting people back into the market square and getting the business rolling again.
Okay, that's great to hear in the
where-
background. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question for Johnny? Councillor Fage, Grant Fage.
I think not so much a question, more a comment. My first impression is, would be interested to see, I can't think of another example of where I've seen posts slotting into the ground like that, but I can see how that could work. And I understand, obviously, from your point of view, you can't have very large weights on the bottom of things because it's not viable to move them back into your shop. So I perfectly understand that. My first impression actually is that I think this could smarten up some of it can sometimes feel a little bit, particularly with the permanent structures that are there. I think these barriers would actually help to sort of just professionalize all of that a little bit and make it feel like the professional cafe that it is, because it is, the real heart of the town centre. I guess just from my point of view, it would be interesting to see some of the detail from central beds as well, because I think we've always had, I think Councillor Knight has hit the nail on the head a little bit, really, because we've always been very supportive of surfing, and I hope we can be this time around as well. It's always been the one business that, because you've been there for so long and are so well established, whether it's down to our record taking or central beds is, or even mid beds at the time potentially, it all goes back a very long way. So I think it would be useful just to get when all of this comes forward, which you're looking to do. I think just a sort of formal understanding between us and you would probably be a positive thing for both of us going forward. And that doesn't necessarily mean charges, but would just mean something just a little bit clearer about sort of dimensions and size, if nothing else.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like the only reason I went and got it okayed by CBC is because I know the history of ownership. So I thought, well, if I can get this kind of okay, then it's halfway there. Because if we did it through the town council, it would have still had to have gone the other way, and I know how difficult that can be sometimes. But yeah, I totally agree. It would clean and professionalise the market square. A lot of internal shopping malls tend to have these. Like I could go for the normal stands, but when it's windy, sometimes the wind can actually move, because we've got barriers like that at the moment. We used to have 12 of them. I didn't replace them because when it's windy, the wind can actually move them and just crash them into the chairs. So we want something secure, and something that stops customers sprawling out as well, because you do have a spread of customers. And what we're not looking forward to at the moment, post-COVID, is track and trace. Every customer is going to have to be track and traced. Now that's going to be quite hard for us outside, but if you can pen them in, a little bit like, one man and his dog type, it just means that it's easier and it's more manageable. And that's what we're really looking for. But I've got the email threads with CBC, and I'm willing to work closely with you to just tie it up and work backwards and forwards. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well, perhaps Councillor Fage and Johnny can have a conversation outside of this meeting and take things forward. That would be good. I'm going to move on because we've got a long agenda, but thank you very much, Johnny, for coming and showing us what you intend to do. Very much appreciated.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Thanks, councillors. Good night.
Thank you.
So I'm now going to move on to Luke Newman to talk about a Facebook group called For Men to Talk. Luke.
Hi there.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've got a presentation. Is that okay?
Yeah, go on.
Thank you. My name is Luke Newman, and I'm the founder of For Men to Talk. I live in Potton, Bedfordshire, but I've lived in nearby towns throughout my life. I lost my mum Jen when I was 24 and she was 54, and my sister Heidi 5 years ago when she was just 44. They both passed away to cancer, which I know affects many, many people. Losing them has left me with a huge amount of grief, which has also given me anxiety. I've always been open with my mental health problems, but I know a lot of men aren't. This has to change. Men need to talk. So in December 2019, I founded For Men to Talk, a group for men suffering with a mental health illness such as anxiety, depression, and grief to talk with other fellow sufferers. And in February 2020, the first group meeting was held at Jones's Cafe in Biggleswade. Men did talk their feelings, but also about anything such as football, television, and movies. It just felt comfortable that men going through similar problems were in the same room. After 2 more further meetings, coronavirus meant that we had to move them online. Since then, we've had weekly Wednesday Zoom meetings, which have been going from strength to strength and seen huge improvements in the mental health of the regular attendees. This has given me the opportunity to welcome professional presenters speaking about subjects that improve the mental health of the attendees, items such as nutrition, exercise, and sleep. As well as mental health, men don't talk about their physical health. This also needs to change. I welcome the likes of Prostate Cancer UK to talk about the symptoms of prostate cancer. Men need to know about these symptoms, as well as testicular cancer. Did you know that 1 in 8 men in the UK will get prostate cancer in their lifetime? My plan is to take For Men to Talk to further cafes in different towns, but only when I feel it's safe to do so. Until then, we shall enjoy the meetings from the comfort of our own homes. In August 2020, For Men to Talk was announced as a community interest company, which is a non-charitable limited company which benefits the community. You can follow us on all social media channels as well as our website, www.formentotalk.co.uk.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Did you wish to add anything else, Luke?
Yes, what it is now, but it did actually start off as a Facebook group, as I said in that presentation. It's now a CIC. I think my question really is if there's any funding out there for me to take this as a full-time career. At present, it's just for me doing it voluntarily, but my step forward is going forward, especially when we are out of lockdown, when the furlough scheme finishes, especially, I think we're going to see a lot more men needing, especially the services like For Men to Talk and obviously other charities like mine, Calm and Samaritans. So if anybody knows of any funding out there, I really highly appreciate, let me know.
Thank you very much. Well, if individual councillors know, then I'm sure they'll let you know.
Right,
are there any questions of Luke Newman? I'm not seeing any. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's certainly something I didn't know anything about, so you've taught me something this evening. Thank you very much. Good night.
Sorry, several hands have gone up.
Oh, all right.
At least 3, I think.
I saw Councillor Foster and then Councillor Knight.
I was merely waving to try and attract your attention, Madam Mayor. They're for other people's benefit.
Okay, Councillor Knight.
I think Councillor Grant-Fage was first.
Jonathan Woodhead was before me, actually. But
we have got a long meeting. We could
sorry,
I wanted
to thank you for what you're doing in the community, actually. Luke, I've seen quite a bit of your activity on social media, and I know that for those who are involved in that, I'm sure it's been very valuable, and all councillors can have a think about. There is often funding out there, particularly probably post-coronavirus, where the government takes on projects like this or pushes sort of favourable grants or tax breaks and things which potentially could be taken advantage of. So we'll, although I know I personally don't know any off the top of my head at the moment, thank you for coming along to help us to keep our eyes open for these things and to get back in touch with you.
Right, thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Woodhead.
We're not hearing you, Jonathan.
Is that better? Yep.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. No, it was just say thanks for presenting, Luke. It was really all power to your elbow in terms of the work that you're doing. And yeah, if we can think of any assistance or ideas, we'll be in touch. I think also you are in touch with Richard Fuller, but if you're not, do drop Richard a line as our MP, because I'm sure he would be a good advocate for your group and for taking things forward as well. So do keep him in the loop as to what you're doing. But thanks again.
He's actually been to a meeting previously as well, so thank you. Yeah,
brilliant, no problem. So anyway, but just keep up the good work, and we'll try and help if we can.
Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. It may just be worth mentioning that the Town Council does have a grant application process. It's an annual process, so that may be something you want to read details about on the website, or I'm sure the Town Clerk can help you. Thank you for coming. I just had sort of one question, really. Roughly how many people do you think you've been able to help since you started in Biggleswade, and how many people typically join your weekly meetings, if there's an average? Thank you.
When we first started off in beginning of February of last year, we first attempt, I was expecting 4 or 5 men to come through the door, and we had 23 come through that first door, and that was from the local area in Jones's Cafe. I've actually got another meeting with them tomorrow, ready to come back in physical movement. But we're getting that sort of same numbers coming onto Zoom every week. So, you know, the regular attendees, I'd say 16, 17, but then we get a lot of just men, just the odd occasion who come in. So I reckon around 75 men in total have come on board the last year or so, which is a fantastic number.
Wow, thank you. So it does show there's a real need. Thank you.
There really is needed, yeah. Great, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else. I haven't missed anybody, have I? Okay. Thank you very much, Luke Newman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, I'm moving on the agenda, and the next item is members' questions. Do I have any members' questions? Luke, can you leave the meeting, please, now? Do you mind? Thank you. No members' questions? Okay, I'm moving on. I'm on to the minutes of the meeting, the Town Council meeting on the 9th of March. So the first page is page 8 in our agenda set, and I'm going through it for accuracy. Anything on page 8, please. Page 9. Page 10. Page 10, Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so item 9B, sorry, I think I think I've got the wrong piece here.
We're on top.
Sorry, excuse me, I think I've got the wrong item. Can I come back to you in a second?
Thank you. So anything on page 10? Page 11? Page 12? Page 13? Page 14?
Yes.
Councillor Fage, Grant Fage.
Yes, items 11G and H, the fun runs, just to complete the minute, it was to invite both parties to the events working group meeting at some point, to invite both of them, because we had interest for 2 fun runs, didn't we? I think that needs to be clear, because that was the action.
Okay, so it says above that we proposed, or Councillor Knight proposed referring them to the Town Centre Events Working Group. So you want the resolution to say for these 2 requests to be deferred. Would that help?
I don't think it was deferred to the working group. It was just that we would invite them both to the working group meeting rather than for the events working group to have another discussion about them. It was to invite them to the meeting.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Sorry, apologies. It was page 10, item 9B that so I just think for accuracy, it wasn't actually resolved that we wouldn't comment on that. We didn't comment on it, but we didn't actually vote not to. We just didn't consider that item at all.
As a depot.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm making a note so that these minutes can say what you wish it to say. Okay. Anything else on page 14? Page 15? Page 16? Or page 17? Okay, so that's the minutes of the Town Council meeting. And then we have the Town Centre Management meeting of the 11th of March. So we have the minutes of that meeting, which start on page 18 of our set. Are there any inaccuracies on page 18, page 19, page 20, or page 21? Or page 22, sorry. No, okay, so I'm moving on from town centre management. We then have the PLOS minutes, public land and open spaces from 16th of March. Anything on page 23, page 24, page 25. I thought we had something from page 25 that had been notified earlier. Councillor Foster, Frank Foster.
On mute.
You're on mute, Councillor Foster.
I beg your pardon. Item E, under tree inventory, the third paragraph down, which starts the public realm manager and goes over the page right until the end of at a future meeting. That shouldn't be there at all. That was duplicated from the minutes of the previous meeting on the 24th of November.
Okay, so that needs to be removed.
Needs to be removed, yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything on page 26? Page 27? Or page 28? Okay, thank you. Now, if I can keep the papers in the right order, I'm now going to matters arising. So I'm going back to the minutes of the Town Council meeting, if I can find the minutes. Sorry, I've got too many sets of minutes in front of me. Right, the minutes of the Town Council meeting of the 9th of March. Any matters arising on page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, or page 17. So no matters arising from the minutes of that meeting. Thank you. Now, we've got the 2 committee minutes, and I'd like a bit of guidance from the clerk. Should we be doing matters arising at this meeting, or should that go to the committee meetings?
I believe we should pick it up, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councillor Ramsey, you're indicating.
Yes, I would like to move that we accept the minutes of the Town Council meeting as an accurate record.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to that? No, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping me right, Councillor Ramsey. Okay, so I'm on the Town Centre Management minutes of the 11th of March. Are there any matters arising on page 18, page 19, page 20, page 21, or page 22? No. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Item 11B, the parking permits policy. So the town clerk will be aware I've been helping a couple of residents get their permits extended the last few days. I had a look on the website, and obviously we're in the process of transitioning to a new website. But the parking section of the website doesn't mention any of the decisions that were taken, and I haven't seen any promotion of these decisions in terms of Facebook, in particular in relation to the discounted permits that we have available. Is that something that the clerk plans to undertake, please?
Councillor Knight, I'll make sure that that information is put onto the website.
Thank you. In terms of the car parking, I think the new charges aren't there either, so it's all quite out of date there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not getting any other indication, so I'm moving on now to public land and open spaces. 16th of March. So are there any matters arising from page 23, 24, 25, 26, 27?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Fage.
That's okay. Item I, the 3G football pitch. I just wondered whether we'd heard back from the FA again and Mr. Young. We were keen to keep the conversation going, and I think, for want of a better word, the ball was in his half of the court. Sorry. Wondered whether we'd heard back.
We have not held back. I'll prompt them again, Councillor Fage.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on page 27? Page 28? Councillor Knight.
Sorry, page 27. I was on mute. Item K, just noting that I don't think the specification I asked for has been shared yet. So can I make a polite reminder for that, please?
Will do.
Thank you.
Anything on page 28? Page 29? Okay, so I think we're finished with the matters arising from minutes. So we're on to planning applications, of which we've got quite a lot. The first one is 9 Walton Grove, conversion of a garage. Any comments, please?
Move no objection, subject to neighbours.
Thank you. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. 9A Rowlett's View, single storey side extension. Any comments, please?
Move no objection, subject to neighbours.
Thank you. If nobody waves at me, I'm assuming you're in agreement. Land to the rear of 48 to 52 Lawrence Road, a new house with access, parking, etc. Comments, please. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so my understanding of this one is that it is there's already planning permission on the site for a 3-bedroom bungalow, which we did object to, I believe, at the time. This current proposal is for still a 3-bedroom property, but with then obviously with an upper floor. The grounds, I think, of our objection previously was that limited access onto Lawrence Road. That access is already used anyway by, I think it's 48 and 50 Lawrence Road for their parking. My view is that as this site has already got planning permission for a property, that actually on this change we make no objection.
Thank you. Councillor Fage. Councillor Page.
Oh.
Page.
Yes, I know we objected to it before. I just feel there'd be more traffic going in and out of this entrance and exit. And is there not something we can do with this very narrow 2-way road before this building progresses? Can we not help the residents with the parking issues? And I know CBC and I know other councillors have been looking at this. Can we not support them first before we progress any further?
Thank you. Councillor Grant Fage.
I would like to make a proposal. I didn't support this planning application when it was a house. I didn't support it when it was a bungalow. I think all of our objections still stand around access and around the upgrades which are required to Lawrence Road and the issues coming down what should be a one-way street and then turning down a very narrow sort of back path to get to this property. So I'd like to propose that we refer back to our original objections, saying that we can't support development on this site until Lawrence Road is upgraded and the one-way system complete. And actually, I think there's something to add here about the overbearing nature of a property which is being built to look over people's gardens, which are not currently overlooked by any properties. So I'd like to make that proposal, please. And by the way, I'm pleased that this has been called in. So I'd like to make that proposal, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. I think that addresses Councillor Leslie Fage's problem, because we're saying that Lawrence Road needs to be dealt with before the planning application goes ahead. Are there any further comments on this? So the proposal is to object until Lawrence Road is upgraded and made one way, and that the 2 stories are too overbearing and intrusive on neighbouring properties. So all those in favour of objecting on those grounds, please. That's 10 of us. All those against? 2.
Sorry, just to be clear, I did say as well, just to refer back to our original objections as well. I hope that's okay with the people that have voted for it.
Okay, I'm making a note of that. So that's 10-3, I think, in the end. Thank you very much. 66 Fairfield Road, side extension and rear extension. Comments, please.
None subject to neighbours.
Okay. 1 Holly Close, conversion of garage and a single-storey rear extension and first floor side rear extension. Any comments?
None subject to neighbours.
Okay. 15 Eagle Farm Road, part 2-storey and single-storey rear extension. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if we may have missed a deadline here, because the building is actually commenced. So I'm not sure whether they've got permission or not, but it's certainly in progress.
Yes, I've seen that as well, Councillor Alban.
Yeah, although saying that, I don't feel that we should object, but just bringing that to everybody's attention that it has started.
So what are we saying on this? Are we saying subject to neighbours?
That would be my proposal.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. 46 Taverner Drive, single-storey rear extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Thank you. 1 Thirlmere Close, if I can get it out, single-storey extension.
None subject to neighbours.
Subject to neighbours again, okay. 37 Home Court Avenue, single-storey flat-roofed rear extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Councillor Fage wishes to speak.
Sorry, I was going to say, these drawings are just, they've been done with a pen and a ruler. I'm not saying there's any problem with what's being proposed, but is it too much to ask for some proper drawings that we can actually make a decision on? I honestly don't feel able to make a decision based on the quality of these drawings, but I'm happy to go with what others say.
So are we doing subject to neighbours, but with a comment on the poor quality of the drawings? Are people happy with that?
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense.
21 Ann Street, single-storey extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Thank you. 33 The Balk, single-storey rear and side extension.
And subject to neighbours.
40 Potton Road, single-storey rear and side.
No.
Subject to neighbours. Oh, Councillor Fage, sorry, Leslie Fage.
Yeah, just to ensure that the existing parking remains and subject to neighbours, because that second story, that second car park at the back, they could quickly incorporate it into a garden. I think it needs to remain because it's on a very busy corner, Banks Road and Potton Road.
Okay, so
existing parking to remain.
Are people happy with that? Existing parking to remain, but otherwise subject to neighbours? Yes? Okay. 10 Ann Street, single-storey rear extension.
Subject to neighbours.
Okay. 4 London Road, retail sign on building.
Move no objection.
Happy with no objection, everybody? Thank you. 20 St Margaret's Gardens. part single and part 3-storey side extension, loft conversion and single storey rear extension and extension to garage. Any comments, please?
No, subject to neighbours. Would look quite nice.
Okay, I'm assuming we're all happy with that because nobody else is signalling. Orchard Chase, land off of Saxon Drive, 2 entrance signage boards. Councillor Pullinger.
Before making a proposal on this, I do notice from the papers that Councillor Whitaker has responded, and in her comments has said, I believe this area is also home to native rare orchids and is managed particularly carefully because of this. The Town Council will be able to provide more detailed information. And in the officer's response to Councillor Whitaker, says that she would be contacting our clerk. I was just wondering if Mr. Tarrant has any update on that and whether it is an area that we maintain and actually have any information on at all.
I don't have an update, Councillor Pullinger, and I haven't been contacted, no.
Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I'm not happy with this. I think these signs will detract from the appearance of the green wheel. And I don't know why they're asking for 2 signs, one on either side of the road. They're identical signs. Why do they need 2? So I think it will be, as I said, a detraction from the appearance of the green wheel. The other thing I worry about is developers tend to leave these signs in place. The roundabout down the road has got a number of flagpoles and signs for developments that have already been completed and are occupied, but they're still there. So there's a general problem with these things left hanging around. I don't see why they're necessary. I think they'll detract from the appearance of that area, and I would propose that we object.
Seconded.
So we're objecting on the basis of the appearance, the detrimental effect on the green wheel. We're questioning why 2, and we're also questioning how long they will be there.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy with that? Yeah, okay, thank you. I have got another piece of paper, supplementary agenda. So we're on to item Q, 5 Home Court Avenue, 2-storey rear extension and single-storey rear extension. Any comment?
Subject to neighbours.
Subject to neighbours again, okay. 60 Saffron Road, variation of condition of the Planning Commission.
Move no objection, subject to neighbours.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. And then item S, the railway station, Station Road, the transport interchange. Councillor Fage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think we've had a lot of back and forth over this over the last few months, not as much as liked as a council to be able to influence this and have our say. So I'd like to make a 2-part proposal, and if members would like to take each part separately, then we can do. However, if we take them both, I think they should be all one response to central beds. So firstly, I'd like to comment on what is in front of us. So I think we can support the change of priorities for Saffron Road and Station Road, including the compulsory right turn out of Palace Street. We can also support the double yellow lines along Station Road. The crossing points appear sensible, however, there should be proper zebra crossings without pavement build-outs, which narrow the road. The Town Council regrets the lack of detail over electronic signage for bus and train times, as this should be an obvious requirement for any interchange. The single shelter also appears far too small and will do little to encourage the use of buses. If trees need to be removed to create a larger shelter, which would encourage people to use the services there, then perhaps that could be explored. So that's the first part of the proposal, which responds actually to the planning application. The second part of the proposal is a little different. So Biggleswade Town Council made huge sacrifices to help secure the housing infrastructure funding, including £2.4 million available for this project. Unfortunately, this project falls quite a long way short of £2.4 million worth of value. That is over £120 for every resident of Biggleswade, and it's more than double the Town Council's annual budget. It's a huge amount of money. As has been explained multiple times, any transport interchange scheme needed to allow for bus layovers. Only then could we remove standing buses from the market square and proceed with discussions about the demolition of Sentry House. Since bus standing points are not included as part of this project, the residual benefits will not be felt, hence the value for money falls short of 2.4 million. Biggleswade Town Council wishes to make clear that unless the scope of this programme of work is increased to incorporate bus standing elsewhere in the town, then Biggleswade Town Council will strongly object to this project on the grounds that it is an irresponsible use of public money. Any scope increase will need to be formally communicated well in advance of the end of April. If that is not forthcoming, then Biggleswade Town Council will submit that formal objection in the closing days of this consultation. We're sorry to be in this situation, but we are duty bound to ensure the prudent deployment of public funds and to get the best outcome for Biggleswade. If the scope can be increased to allow for bus standing, then we will support it fully and work with Central Beds, just as we did to secure the housing infrastructure funding back in 2018-19. If the scope is not formally increased, then the Town Council will strongly object, as outlined above, escalating the poor use of money to our MP and, if necessary, the Secretary of State for Transport.
Thank you. That's a proposal from Councillor Fage. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Yes, I have more than one. Thank you. So, Councillor Pullinger, you were indicating.
Thank you. So I broadly agree with Councillor Fage's comments in both parts. So just a few additions and comments to make. So in terms of our response to the planning application itself, so a couple of things that I think we ought to add into our response. I think I'm not sure I heard whether you mentioned specifically around the uncontrolled road crossings, but in particular I would question the safety of those, in particular the one to the west, but also probably the middle one, which will have buses passing it. The other point is I think it might be useful if we can refer to specific planning guidance, and particularly in respect to the National Planning Framework, paragraph 127, that states that planning decisions should ensure that development will function well and add to the overall quality of the area, not just for the short term, but over the lifetime of the development. And I think the important points here are function well and for the lifetime of the development. And I don't think this is large enough in that it doesn't have the capacity for those layovers, as Councillor Fage says, and also the fact that we know there's going to be additional services, or the proposed local plan will require that there are additional local services, with the additional shuttle bus coming from the Home Farm development, if nothing else. And the rest of Councillor Fage's points I fully agree with. In respect to the second part of Councillor Fage's proposal, I think we do need to separate that from the planning response. I think the target probably for that would be Marcel Coffey rather than the planning officers. And I think probably I would tone it in a way that isn't quite so much of a threat as more of a raising the concerns, and that we feel we cannot accept it and will need to escalate through whichever channels that is in relation to the HIF and in relation to the Department for Transport. But I wouldn't necessarily couch it in terms of a deadline for them to respond and update this planning application. I think it's more having to probably needs to be a bit softer than that in its language, but I agree certainly with the sentiment of it.
Thank you. Councillor Alban and then Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with much of what I've just heard from the previous speakers. I'm particularly concerned about crossings and pedestrian safety here. There'll be a lot more pedestrian movements from where the bus area is planned to be than currently happens. and it's a wide sort of concourse there, and the temptation will be to cross in different places to where the crossings have been indicated. So I don't think that pedestrian safety has been addressed in any way with these plans. So they're my particular concerns.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So the emerging local plan mentions the so-called transport interchange and states that high quality waiting areas will be provided. And as has already been suggested, I think this proposal falls a long way short of high quality waiting areas. In particular, the shelter. I mean, it's very hard to see from the drawings, but frankly, it's a fraction of the size of a bus. So it's unclear how that could accommodate people. There's no detail about whether it's heated, how drafty it's going to be. If there was hard standing areas there for buses, then there's some chance that when you arrive by train, you can get straight onto a warm bus before it sets off. That clearly isn't going to be possible, and therefore I would like to see much greater investment in warm and dry shelters and much more detail on that. And as I say, I do not believe this meets the description that is mentioned in the emerging local plan. I also agree. I think after the last meeting where we said we would like to have some consultation with the town council, I don't think there's been any proper effective consultation or working between Central Beds and the town council. So I also agree with the comments from Mr. Pullinger that maybe we should write to the chief executive of CBC and request a meeting with him.
There have been some meetings about this, but the line that is being taken by Central Bedfordshire is simply that Network Rail will not allow the use of any more land, so they can't expand what's on offer. And apparently Network Rail would not agree to the design that we had presented to us at a previous council meeting, which we all thought was very, very good. And what we're being told is that Network Rail and GTR will not agree to that. So we're then stuck with what is the original plan, which none of us at all liked. Does anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Ramsey.
Yes, I agree with David Elbone with this random crossing of pedestrians. And in a way, that was a similar problem that we had with Stratton School on the London Road. And as soon as we put in a Pelican crossing, pedestrians then started to use it because the facility was there. And I do think we should have a proper crossing there, and it will stop all this wandering in and out of traffic. I think that's a good idea. The other thing is, when we had the meeting before and we had two representatives from Central Beds down here, and we talked about the market square and the buses and this and that, and they said that is nothing to do with our remit. What you do with your market square is entirely up to you. All we are doing is looking at the railway station, which means we're really not going to get a coordinated approach from Central Beds, I don't think. Thank you.
Okay. So does council wish to take this in two different parts, or are you happy to take it together? Two parts. Councillor Foster, Mark Foster.
Yeah. Just before we go on, look, you'll know that I have as many concerns as other councillors do in relation to this, and we've got this sort of dilemma, really, haven't we? And this we need to be approaching this in two ways. I think that we need to deal with it as one bit as the plan application, which is clearly the first part. The second part, I agree with Councillor Pullinger in terms of the tone of it. I don't disagree with the sentiment, Councillor Fage. I think you're right in terms of how we what our feelings are on this, and we're in a bit of a difficult situation because if we don't support it, it's almost as if it's going to go ahead because of in relation to HIF and the link to that. The flip side of that, of course, is the fact that we want something that works, and I can't really see the benefit of essentially a glorified bus depot, bus station that doesn't have any layovers. It doesn't have any drop-off points that I can see. So where do we go with it? Ultimately, it's a sort of a compromise that's unsatisfactory. The money aspect of it is not so much a red herring as such, but it's an issue that we need to be facing. I absolutely support the point about contacting Marcel Coiffé, but we need to be wording it in a way that is less direct, I think.
Councillor Fage.
Okay, no, that's fine. I think part of the problem is obviously we have been very constructive in the way we've tried to work with Central Bedfordshire over the last several years, and we still want to be. I think it's just the extent to which we feel let down about this. So I'm happy to take this. I think we can take this in two parts potentially. The response to the planning application, I will incorporate. Happy to incorporate any of the wording that Councillor Albin in particular has said around safety with the crossings, but also Councillor Knight's points around the high quality shelter and those raised by Councillor Pullinger on paragraph 127. Don't know which page it is off the top of my head, but I'll take his word for it, of the planning policy framework. And then happy to soften the language, but I do think we need to be clear that the fact that layovers are left out of this. They keep saying if the excuse is not Network Rail, the excuse is, oh, it's not in scope. Well, they are in control of the scope, and I think it's that we need Central Beds to respond to now. And we're not asking for much. They're telling us there's only one layover a day. Well, if that's the case, it won't be very difficult to find somewhere else for that to take place. So I can say it as I can rephrase it and soften the language, and perhaps. If we're comfortable with the sentiment at least and roughly what we're saying, if we're happy to pass that, then I'm happy to redraft that wording, circulate to councillors, and then ask perhaps the clerk to deal with that second part with whoever he thinks is most appropriate to email that to. If that's Marcel Coiffé, it's Marcel Coiffé. If it's Kate McFarlane, it's Kate McFarlane. So sorry to ramble on and sorry to bore you with an A4 side, which I've just read out, but obviously there's a lot to cover and it is important. But if I pause there, I'm happy to hear any other comments.
Okay, so shall we take the first part then, the actual response to the planning application, which Councillor Fage has just outlined again. All those in favour of that response to the planning application, please. That's 12. Any against? No, okay. So then we've had the discussion about the tone of a separate letter to either Marcel Coiffé or Kate McFarlane. After what's been discussed, and if the language is softened, who is in favour of that, please? Can you show? That's 12 again. Okay, any against, please? No, right, thank you very much. The next planning application is, I think, a duplication of what we've just talked about. That's the Orchard Chase signage boards. So I'm going to move on from that, if that's all right with everybody. So we're now on to item 10, which is the accounts. So can I bring in Councillor Ramsey, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose that we adopt the following under the financial administration. The detailed balance sheet to the 28th of Feb 21, the summary income and expenditure by committee 28th of Feb 21, the detailed income and expenditure by committee 28th of Feb 21, and the Lloyds Bank payment listing for February 2021. Thank you.
Do I have a second for that, please? Thank you. Mr. Chopping, you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to draw members' attention, and I'm sure it has been drawn to your attention, because the agenda item attachment, the detailed balance sheet, was in fact erroneously sent out by the accountant, and it's been substituted because the one circulated with the agenda unfortunately showed a balance in an account we no longer have, and I had to ask the accountant to revise that. Hopefully members have seen the revised one, and it is in fact the revised balance sheet which the chairman of F&GP is asking you to accept.
Thank you for that clarification. So all those in favour, please, of adopting those accounts. Can we show, please? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then Councillor Ramsey, the internal audit, please.
Yes, I hope you've read it, and it would appear that the auditors are very satisfied with the way that we run our accounts. I don't think there's anything there. I've got one comment here that they still seem to think on page 50 that we deal with the district council rather than central beds. So if they are copying this from previous, it's been on there a few years that it's been wrong. So I don't know if we need to make a permanent adjustment to that, or alteration, or just mention it to them when they do it. But that doesn't show that there's any difficulties or any problems that we as a council need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other comments, please? Councillor Bullinger.
Oh, thank you. Just one comment, and it's on page 49, the last sentence doesn't fully make sense. I think that might need to be revised slightly in the final report, where it states invoices for the 220 allotments are raised at the Orchard Centre by DCK Accounting Services in September each year. I think there's maybe just a bit of confusion on the part of the auditors on exactly what they're looking at. So if that could just be clarified in the final report.
So, did you say that's on page 49?
The last sentence of page 49, yeah. So I think they've mixed up the allotments and the Orchard Centre invoices that have been raised or something, but just to make it clearer.
Councillor Mark Foster.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I think it's given the circumstances that we've been within the council within the last year. I think officers should be commended for the audit. I think we should be congratulating the team that are responsible for the this audit in particular, and thank them for their work.
So we've made a note of 2 issues that we need to discuss with the auditors. If that happens, are we happy to accept the internal audit report, please? Can you show if you're happy to accept it? That's 11, 12, 13. People are waking up. 13 of us accepting it, that's fine, thank you. I'm going on to item 11 now, and if I may from the chair, this first item is the consultation on the local plan proposed main modifications. The response to this has to be in by midday on May the 5th, and I'd like to propose from the chair that we defer this matter to our meeting on May the 4th. The reason why I'm asking to defer it is that there's a lot of work to be done. There's well over 300 pages of documents on the Central Beds website, and I think we all need time to go through it as much as we want to, and to make sure that we've taken up all the points that refer to Biggleswade, particularly to Home Farm, but also to issues to do with the town centre. And there are some issues to do with Land East as well. So may I have your support, please, to defer this to our meeting on the 4th of May? Councillor Knight.
I think your proposal to defer it is a sound one. I just worry if the meeting is on the 4th in the evening and the submission has to be due in the next day, is that going to give officers time to write up what could be quite detailed comments? And do we need to have the meeting slightly earlier than that?
Well, what I was hoping that we could do, and I'm happy to coordinate it since I've been working on the local plan, is to ask all of you to send your comments and to get a document out to people when the agenda goes round for the 4th of May. So that there's plenty of time to look at it and we can make any changes that anybody wants on the 4th of May, but there'll be a base document for officers to deal with. I hope that answers your...
Yeah, that sounds sensible. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
I was just going to say, alternatively, we do have an extra council meeting scheduled for, is it Grove Road and the neighbourhood?
The 13th.
Maybe we could consider it at that meeting instead.
Well, that's only a week away, and I'm trying to give us enough time to go through this because, I mean, Councillor Knight has already referred to something today, which I hadn't picked up from the local plan, to do with the transport interchange. And I think it needs all of us to see what we pick up from that. Please email me and then we'll try and bring it all together in a document, because it's really important that we get these comments back, because all of our comments will go to the inspectors before they make their final decisions on the local plan. So we need to get Biggleswade's point of view through to the inspectors. Is that okay with everybody? Yeah, okay. If we're done before the, in time, we can see what else we might do with the plan, but definitely the latest, the 4th of May. So moving on to 11B, proposed diversion of part of public bridleways 28 and 2, Sunderland Hall Farm. Comments, please, colleagues. Councillor Alban and then Councillor Fage.
Yeah, I've got no objection to the new path that's proposed, the new footpath and bridleway, but I'd welcome that actually, but I can't see any reason why we should agree to stopping up the existing right of way. It's been there for as long as anybody can remember, and much longer than that too, and it's. I think I saw in some documents that I can't find at the moment that one of the reasons to stop it up might be because it's going through a working farm area, but it's been like that for so many years. I can't see why that's a valid reason now. So we would be losing a right of way, which I don't think is necessary, but I would welcome the new right of way too. So I would propose that we object to the stopping up of the existing right of way, but welcome the new one.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposal before I take? Yes, I've got seconders. Okay, who else wishes to speak? I think Councillor Fage was next, wasn't she? And then Councillor Pullinger.
So, thank you. Before Councillor Alban's comment, I was just going to say I'm in favour of it, and I would like it properly signposted, because it isn't very well signposted, those bridleways, and it's quite easy to get lost. This is a working farm, and it is an expanding farm, and he's put a lot of money into it. You can see he put a planning permission in and everything else, which we've all seen. So I think he's really trying to protect his land. So by having access up there, he's struggling to keep security for the whole of his area. So, and for safety reasons, to me, it makes sense to approve this.
Okay. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so normally in principle I am against closing up of rights of way, and whenever anyone comes with a proposal to do so, that's usually my starting position. But on balance, I think actually we should support this this proposal. What is proposed, I think, is a superior right of way. And there's no incentive for the landowner to provide that land of way if the existing one is not stopped up. So I don't think there is a case to say we welcome this one, but we don't want the other one stopped up, because there's no reason for him to provide the new one if the original one isn't stopped up. So I think on balance, I think I as I say, I would support this one. I think it's a preferable right of way overall. The difference in distances is not really significant overall. I don't think there isn't a access to any particular area of value that is stopped by stopping up the right of way with the other one being created. So I would vote against the proposal that has been put forward by Councillor Albone.
Thank you. Councillor Bond?
Just for clarification, I wouldn't normally pass comment on sort of pseudo planning applications like this, but the way that bridleways are diverted, there is a two-part stage normally, which is stop up and creation. So that's why you've got it in two parts. It's basically all part of the same equation, and so that's how it normally works. I've seen other applications that went to DMC only a few months ago where a bridleway was stopped up, basically diverted for the purpose of actually security reasons. Obviously, these are safety reasons. I'll let colleagues pass judgment as to how they want to do it. I will obviously have to abstain on this because I shouldn't really. I prefer not to actually have an opinion one way or another on this, just in case it goes to committee.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to say anything? We have a proposal in front of us. Councillor Albone, would you agree to taking this in two parts? Because there's obviously some dissension about the second part, or would you prefer it to be taken as one proposal?
I think I prefer it to be taken as one proposal.
Okay, so the proposal is that there's no objection to the new path, that's to be welcomed, but to object to stopping up the existing path. All those in favour of that, please. That's 5. Against? That's 5. 6, sorry, it's 6. Okay, so that one falls. So do I have another proposal, please? Councillor Pullinger.
Can I propose that we support the proposal, but ask for increased signage to in relation to Councillor Fage's point, to show the route of the new bridleway?
Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you. Councillor Grant-Fage.
Yeah, sorry, whether we could add one further addition to that we would like to see this new bridleway maintained to as good a standard as the one that it's replacing. I wouldn't want to say, so almost on the condition that this bridleway is maintained to as good a standard, because appreciate that there's going to be the rerouting, but I wouldn't want that to be you know, an indirect have an indirect impact in terms of public rights of way if it's not as accessible for everybody, i.e. not up to the same standard. So would Councillor Pullinger be okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's a middle way here. So obviously there's a bridleway that goes through a farmyard, and the farmer doesn't want, we believe, the bridleway to go through there. Rather than stopping up that bridleway completely, would it be an option to retain that as a public footpath only, so the bridleway takes the new route, but that pedestrians can still take the old route, where presumably there are fewer safety issues?
Well, at the moment, I've got a proposal on the table. I think what you're suggesting is in conflict with the proposal I've got. So I think I need to take the proposal that's on the table and then see where we go. Councillor Bond, are you still wishing to speak? Your electronic hand is up. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? So the proposal is to support the new path and the stopping up of the old bridleway, but to ask for increased signage and for the new bridleway to be maintained to as good a standard as the current one. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. I've got 5 there. Against? That's 4, I think. Wait a minute, continue showing and I'll count again. That's 6. So that's 5 for and 6 against. So that one falls. So where are we going with this item, please, colleagues?
So may I propose that we welcome the creation of the new bridleway, but ask that the former bridleway is downgraded to a footpath and retained as a footpath? Sorry, Frank, you're on mute.
Seconded.
Okay, so the next proposal on this then is to welcome the new bridleway, but to ask that the former bridleway be retained as a footpath. All those in favour of that, please. That's 9. Against? That's 1. I think we finally have a proposal that's passed.
Can I just suggest?
Yes, Councillor Page.
Sorry, can I suggest that we go and find out why this all needs diverting? I don't think we've got enough information, because they want a diversion for a reason other than just safety. Is it not safe that people should be kept away as well as bridle and footpath? Do we need some more clarification on this from the people who've put this in?
Well, we could do, but we have now passed a proposal that says that we welcome the new bridleway, but want the existing one to be retained as a footpath. So I think we've made our decision, Councillor Page, although I understand exactly what you're saying. So I'm going to move on to item C, which is the Langford and Biggleswade Community Fund Group. And I think Councillor North, you wanted to introduce this item.
Yeah, so what this is, I was contacted by a person who I know who was involved with this, and also directed. The person was directed to me anyway by an officer at Central Beds who deals with the wind farm community fund. And all it is that they've got this great this idea of making a garden at Ivell Valley School to be basically built and maintained by the students there. But they need some money to actually get equipment and materials to build it, and they want to make an application to the wind farm fund to fund it. So I sit on the committee of that, and we have done similar things in the past. So but part of the application process is to get support from the parish council or town council. So either Langford Parish Council or Biggleswade Town Council. So all they're asking is that they're not asking for any money from Biggleswade Town Council. They're just asking for us to support their application. And as it is obviously an important institution in the town, and Biggleswade residents involved in it, that I would propose that we should give them our support. An expression of support.
Is that seconded? Yes. Councillor Foster, are you seconding it?
Yes. Can I just ask a question? Is this the money related to the money that's derived from the windmills?
Yes.
Yes. So it's not money that's coming from the council. This is a fund which is generated by the renting out of land for the windmills. Money is arrived at. So that's an application for some of that fund.
That's right. The people, the developers, well, it's the co-op, isn't it, who own the land, I think, who finance the wind farm and take the revenues from the wind farm. And part of the whole deal was to pay into this fund to support community projects in Langford and Biggleswade, because part of the wind farm actually is within Biggleswade parish boundaries, and it's about £25,000 a year. And we have funded several projects over the last 3 or 4 years that it's been running. Well, it's longer than that, actually, isn't it? Probably. And I keep trying to get, and we've seen such a document in the past, but I keep trying to get them to provide me with a sort of complete list of all the projects that have been financed and the amount of money that's been paid. You're talking about maybe 10, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 projects that have gone through over the period of time, but they seem to find it very difficult to actually provide that information. But I will keep on at them about it and try. And when I get such information, I will share it with the council, so you will be able to see what the money has been used for.
Thank you. I've got several people wanting to speak. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Mark Foster, then Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a project that we as a council should support. I think it will do wonders for the pupils there, and they come from not just Biggleswade but from around the area, and it deserves wider support than just from this one source. I think it's an absolute excellent idea, and the benefits to the pupils now and in their future lives will be immense, and therefore I'd commend the recommendation to this, and as much support possible should be given to them.
Councillor Strawn has pretty much said far more eloquently than I would do my thoughts. My only thing I would add is the fact that it's in relation to the Duke of Edinburgh, part of the student who is part of that, and I think it's something that we should wholeheartedly support. And the fact that we've got a resident of the town that's trying to make this happen for the children the students at this school, I think is important. So I absolutely support it.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey.
Hello, yes. I think Councillor North will find details of the grants that have been obtained and how they've been dispersed. If he looks on the Central Beds website under the Wind Farm Community Fund, he will find a list there of the money that's been received and the projects that have been supported.
Okay, well, I will try and find it. Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. I will try and find it.
Councillor Foster, Frank Foster.
I'd just like to add my voice in support of this project. I think it's an excellent thing and I fully support it.
Thank you. So, Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, just two very quick points. So I'm fully supportive of this. One thing I would potentially recommend to them is that they consider the quality of some of the equipment they're looking to buy and maybe up spec some of the equipment so that it lasts a bit longer. It seems that they may have gone for budget rather than quality in some of the items, and they might be better seeking more money but to get better quality equipment and items. Second point is more general in terms of ourselves, and it might have been a bit more helpful if we'd had a bit more understanding what the request was on the agenda, because I'd assumed coming into the meeting that it was a request for our funds, not for just as a case of offering support. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pullinger, I will pass on your comments about the materials then to the person involved.
I think that the second point that Councillor Pullinger made is a reflection of the fact that we don't actually have many of these schemes that people put forward to support. So, you know, the more community groups can come up with requests, the more we can support them and hopefully get them some funding. Councillor Ramsey.
Can I ask Councillor North, have they put forward an application at all for this? Or are they waiting on our approval to support their application?
Well, I'm not aware that they've put forward an application.
Okay.
And I have tried to contact the person again to get and ask for an update just within the last couple of days, but not got no reply as yet. So,
all right.
As far as I'm aware, they have not. They maybe are just waiting for our formal approval so they can tick that box on the form.
Okay.
Okay, so can I have a show, please, of all those in favour of supporting this application to the Wind Farm Fund? That's all of us, that's unanimous. Thank you. I'm aware that time is moving on. would council consider deferring the speed watch signs item to the future meeting, maybe next week's meeting on the 13th?
Yeah, move it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just get some clarity as well when that comes onto the agenda, what they're actually asking for? Because it's not clear whether they're asking us for money or whether Central Beds are going to pay for it. So I think we just need a bit of clarity on it too.
Okay, thank you. So I'm moving on to market strategy, which I think we do need to consider. Councillor Fage, do you want to lead on this?
Yes, please. Sorry, I have quite a bit to say on it, but I want to bring members up to speed. So Town Centre Management Committee's met a few times in the last, how many times have we met? 3 times in the last 6 months or so. The market working group was formed in January, and from a standing start, we have identified a lot of the issues with the market, and we now have a strategy to present to council for adoption. Just for everybody's awareness, the market is a priority for the town centre. We're taking a very different approach to it to the way we have in the past. We want to see the market thrive, not just in terms of the quantity of traders we have, but also the quality of what they produce, and really make it a draw for people to come into the town. So we have teamed up with Meg Green and Hannah Abel from Made in the Wade, who host a very successful craft fair a couple of times a year at Stratton School, when COVID restrictions allow, of course. So they have brought already a lot of new thinking and really a very different dynamic to the market, even with just improved branding and with their just general knowledge of markets. So that's the background. So I'd like to make a proposal, and I'm happy to take comments as always, but this is, you'll forgive me, a 4-part proposal, because I think there's quite a bit that we need to get clarified and approved by council. So at point 1 of the proposal, I'd like to propose that we adopt the strategy for a period of 6 months. Point 2, I'd like to propose that we accept the pitch fee changes on slide 7, but not from the 17th of April. TCM should consider in May when to implement those pitch fees, and all traders should be warned well in advance to know what they're going to expect. Part 3, so this strategy will require some policy changes. If there are questions raised over any contradiction between this strategy and the policy, I'd like council to approve that this strategy takes precedent as the most up-to-date document. So if there are any contentions, then we refer to this strategy over the policy. And policy changes are due in June anyway, so this is not for a huge period of time. Part 4 of the proposal, so the 17th of April welcomes back non-essential traders. I'd like to propose a few things, parts from the strategy, parts from the policy, which I think council needs to give the nod to if possible, please. So no vans should be allowed on the market as per the existing market policy. Exceptions for those who trade from their stall, who trade from their van, such as the fish guy, or whose stall actively enhances or is part of their pitch, which is like the guy who sells clothes. Part B, pitches must be either 10 foot by 10 foot or 2 times 10 foot by 10 foot, no bigger, and there should be no trading from outside of pitches. And finally, the decision for who and how we invite traders back should be with Meg and Hannah to operationalise that and bring our traders back to the market, all of the communications, all of the onboarding. Apologies, that was very lengthy, but very happy to listen to comments.
Well, that's a very detailed proposal. Does anybody wish to second that at the moment?
Yeah, I'll second that, please.
Thank you very much. So any other comments or questions? Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so parts 1, 3 and 4 I fully support, and in particular the piece around the vans, where we see a number of empty vans parked on the market, which really do detract at the moment. I think my concern is around the fees, and from my position at the moment, we are charging the fees that are shown on table 1, But I do understand actually that's not what we're actually currently charging, and we're charging something that was made lower as an operational decision at some point during the pandemic, which I don't believe council has ever been formally notified of. So I don't actually know what the current charges being charged are. For me, I think we should adopt the charges in table 2, but from the 17th of April. I don't really see why we should significantly delay those charges. The other points I was going to make in relation to some of the other points Councillor Page made, and there's one in particular around the layout. I think that the new layout, as we've been operating it with the more limited number of stalls, has been working really well. Just one comment I would make, and that is when the road is open, which it is at the moment with the smaller layout, I think it's important that there are no stalls on the opposite side of the road. There's currently, last few weeks, there's been one outside the New Inn on the opposite side of the road from all of the other stalls, and I think that's potentially a safety hazard if the road is open. So that shouldn't happen, and we should stick to the layout as proposed, which wouldn't have that stall there.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Strawn, and then Mr. Tarrant wants to come in. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A number of points. Firstly, on the strategy set out, it says no vans on the square, yet the proposal seems to indicate that there should be vans on the square if they're trading, and there's no provision for that as far as I can tell from the proposed fee structure. So that, I think, needs clarifying in the strategy. Quite agree with the principle of no vans, but if they're trading from there, then they're not going to have a 10 foot by 10 pitch. So how's that going to be dealt with? Also on the pitches, you make reference in table 2 to the Tuesday market, but not to the farmers market. Further, there may be some staffing implications that could cause me concern. And I don't know what they are because they're not set out or explained, and that needs to be considered at some stage in this. And finally, there's reference also to details about casual traders. Now, in my time on the council, not recently, I admit, we did have regular reports on the number of traders attending each week, whether they were casual or permanent traders. And we should have, I thought, still have those historic records, and they should have been kept running up to date, and I'm concerned that if they haven't, but those are my observations. I think great to see a new strategy, great to bring it forward, but I am concerned about some of the implications from it, particularly at fairly short notice and without a greater debate than just with respect to the Working Party, just their comments. I think that the theory is brilliant, but I'm just a bit concerned that it's been rushed in some respects. So I think it's important that if we do agree it, that it is for a limited period only. And I'm not sure that 6 months is necessarily not too long a period. 3 months, I think might be sufficient, because things are going to change in the next 3 months considerably with the changes in the lockdown rules, etc. So I am a bit concerned that 6 months may be an unnecessarily long period in the first instance, and should be reviewed again by the end of 3 months, when we'll see how the initial stages will have worked.
Thank you. Mr. Tarrant.
I just wanted to respond to Councillor Pullinger's observation. As I understand it, the fees were reduced to £8. But just to be clear, this operational decision wasn't decided upon during my tenure. So it was decided on prior to my appointment 6 to 7 months ago. Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Foster.
Yeah, just seeking to clarify. I think Councillor Page made reference to the organisers of Made in the Wade being responsible for the traders that come onto the market. Obviously that's a change to our policy as has been. Is that on the back? So, and where does that sit in terms of our organisation with the market superintendent, or what arrangements that we have? I'm just seeking to understand what the impact of that change might be. In terms of the growing of the market and the PR and the social media stuff, I've already seen some of that happening, which is very, very positive, and I'm pleased to see that. But just seeking to understand the situation around the new traders, and also the bit about the casual traders that were picked up the fact that we're not having casual traders. So in other words, they can't just turn up. It's now got to be booked online. So perhaps you could expand on that a little bit more, Councillor Page or someone.
Yeah, I'll come back on all of those points. Firstly, thank you all for your comments. So just to be clear, we're not going. The one thing that I think perhaps is not entirely clear from the strategy is that we will really pick and choose which parts we can implement sort of first, with a view to working towards implementing the rest over time. Things like booking online, that can't happen until the new website is in place, for example. So there are dependencies there. But that doesn't mean that we can't pick some of the sort of low-hanging fruit, some of the easier parts to implement, which are still good things to do, and which we probably still need council endorsement to do. Hence the sort of 6-month period. And but maybe I'm happy to take on board what Councillor Strawn has said, if it's more palatable for members. TCM has, as was made clear in the minutes, agreed to work with Meg and Hannah for a provisional period of up to the end of July. That would be 4 months. So maybe that would be easier. I'm happy to adjust my proposal in order to check back in after 4 months on this strategy. To answer the question on inviting traders, so there are a few questions. On inviting traders, we've been through some of this today. A lot of this is quite operational, and Councillor Strawn says he remembers a time when the records were presented to council on which traders attended, which markets, etc. Without going into too much detail, our records on our traders are perhaps not where they need to be. And that's something that Meg and Hannah are going to be looking at. Whilst also one of the great benefits that they have is a huge database of potential future traders, many of whom will be attending for the first time on April the 17th. So it's particularly important that, yes, they work with the market superintendent to make sure that runs smoothly, with the layout being correct, with our traders being welcome back. But ultimately, the buck needs to stop somewhere, and the decision needs to be with somebody. And we think inviting these new traders, certainly my view is that when we invite these traders for the first time, it needs to be done in the new way, which Meg and Hannah need to be responsible for. In terms of vans on the market, hence the beauty of PowerPoint is sometimes you slightly run out of space, Councillor Strawn. So what I was trying to get at was that the proposal is, as I've worded it, that vans should not be allowed onto the market unless it is their stall. And in that case, if it's bigger than 10 foot by 10 foot, then they pay for a double pitch, which is 2 lots of 10 foot by 10 foot, which is the way that it works at the moment, actually. So the fish stall, for example, will pay the £14.50, which is the larger pitch. In terms of pitch fees, we have some really good traders who have started trading actually for the first time during lockdown. One thing I think we need to be mindful of is we've tried a sort of big bang approach in the past to reforming the market, and it hasn't worked as we might like. So I think this needs to be staggered. I think it needs to be incremental. And actually, I think we need to prove what we can offer, our traders, to justify the slightly higher pitch fee, which, by the way, I would anticipate coming, getting back to normal very soon. It's not fair on our town centre businesses who have huge overheads to be in competition with market traders who can sell things for a fraction of the price. That shouldn't be right. But at the same time, we need to just be mindful of the fact that there are stalls which offer very different things, very interesting things, and I'd want to bring them with us in that conversation over the period of the next 5 to 6 weeks. Hopefully that responds to everything. Sorry, I'll stop talking again.
So, Councillor Fage, can you just clarify, your item 2 was on pitch fees, was for TCM to say when the new fees would be introduced?
Yes.
What is the proposal now? Is it still that?
Yes.
Okay. So if there aren't any, oh, wait a minute, Councillor Pullinger, yes, please.
Yeah, so just on the fees. So I mean, I'm willing to I guess support that. I guess I've got a couple of questions. One or points on that specifically, and that is just an observation really that the revised fees are still below what our standard fees were. So it is still ultimately going to be a reduction. So I think the sooner we can get to those fees in table 2, I think ultimately the better. The new traders that we're coming in, what I would hate to see is just to get a lot of new traders coming in on the basis that the fees are £8 and £14.50, for them to balk at the fact that they then go up a month later once we've got them in. So we need to be open and transparent with any new traders that they are going to go up to that level once as restrictions lift and what have you. The other query I have is in terms of agreeing for those to go up. My concern about it being delegated to the TCM is that TCM doesn't meet very often, and therefore it may be a case that we have to wait some time to be able to make that decision. So would it be better to be delegated to the market working group to determine when the right time is rather than TCM?
I'm not sure that the market working group has delegated powers to make those sorts of decisions.
I think it's effectively, if we so what I'm trying to suggest is we're approving them as council that they are our fees, and effectively it then becomes in practice an operational decision as to when they are implemented in consultation with the market working group, as opposed to it being a formal decision of a committee of council.
So, Councillor Fage, are you happy with that then, that we're effectively approving the pitch fees tonight, but it's an operational decision to say when it's implemented?
Can I just hear what Councillor Strawn has to say before I...
Okay, sorry, I didn't see Councillor Strawn wanted to come in.
Thank you for that comment. I did raise the question of farmers market, which isn't covered on that table. Is that going to be the equivalent as Tuesday market? I just think it's important we've got that clarified, otherwise there's no provision for it in that table.
Yeah, farmers market can be the equivalent of the Tuesday market. Part of the strategy does actually allow for potential themed markets, of which a farmers one could be one of them, specific one-off. But I appreciate from a fees perspective, it's not terribly clear.
I think it's important it's clarified.
Okay, yeah, we'll clarify that and we'll minute that as well, please. By the way, I'll provide all of this to Sean and the team to make sure that it's minuted correctly. I'm okay with what Councillor Pullinger is proposing. If it's palatable to other members, it's certainly okay with me to delegate that to the working group. But if councillors would rather it went to either council or TCM, obviously that's a little bit more frequent, then perhaps there's an option there.
Okay, I've got Councillor Frank Foster and then Councillor Ramsey.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Councillor Mark Foster got a response or a clear response, or if he did, I dropped off for a moment, with regard to the market superintendent and the two from the Maid in the Wade situation. What is the situation with those as it affects Bibbleswade Wade Town Council? Are we paying the two ladies from Maid in the Wade? What's the score?
Yes, they're paid. They're on freelance, and I'm happy to discuss that offline if Councillor Foster would like. We, in terms of the relationship with the market superintendent, I don't want to go into detail in a public meeting, but the is working very closely with both Meg and Hannah, and we had a very positive meeting today. They've met several times, including at the market and in other meetings, and these two are taken on to deliver transformation. The operational work of the market superintendent largely remains the same. He's working with Meg and Hannah on the onboarding, but what I'm saying is the decision is with them because they're having to make decisions about new traders who we haven't met before. And as I said in response to Councillor Strawn, some of our records of existing traders are not where they need to be. And part of that transformation and getting us onto the right footing with that needs to sit with Megan Ham.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ramsey.
Hello. I'm a little bit anxious that this working group is sort of stepping outside of its remit. I think any decisions about implementations of fees or processes should either go through the TCM and certainly through council. The Market Toby is actually an employee of the Biggleswade Town Council, so if there's going to be any adjustment to how he works or what he does, that really needs to come through the council. I'm sure the two ladies concerned are doing an excellent job, but perhaps they're not used to the fact that things do have to be endorsed and agreed by the council. That's my only concern, Grant. I know you want to get on with it and it all sounds good, but some things do have to be dealt with in an established way to avoid any misunderstandings at a later date. I don't want Colin turning around in 6 months' time and saying, but I agreed that with the working group, because that really isn't how it's going to work, is it?
Okay. If I respond, I know Mr. Tarrant wants to come in. Let's say the proposal is that the fees have to be, when the fees come in, agreed either by TCM or by council.
Okay, so we're changing to say the pitch fees to be agreed by TCM or council, the implementation of. But the level of the pitch fees is being agreed today, with the addition that the farmers market and any other specialist markets are treated as the Tuesday market. Is that correct?
Depending whether they're a Saturday, just the farmers market. I don't know when we last even had a farmers market. Any farmers market, as it reads on pitch fees, if it's on a Tuesday, it's Tuesday. If it's on a Saturday, it's Saturday. If that's all right in terms of pitch fees.
Sorry, the farmers market stall is listed in table 1.
I've taken that from our original fees. Okay, the pitch fees are as on slide 7. If the farmers market is on a Tuesday, it uses the Tuesday fees. If it's on a Saturday, then it uses the Saturday fees. Not that we've ever really held a farmers market.
What about markets on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Sunday?
We don't have markets then.
I think there's a little bit of detail to be sorted out here. So could we have this further refined, please? Because we do need to be clear to anybody who wants to have a stall or any sort of specialist market. I think what we're saying at the moment is if it's an addition to the Tuesday market, it will be charged at Tuesday rates. If it's an addition to the Saturday market, it will be charged at Saturday rates. But we have occasionally had specialist markets. I think I remember an Italian themed market on a Sunday. And I think, you know, we need to be absolutely clear what we're talking about. Councillor Mark Foster, you wanted to come in.
I did, and I'm just trying to word this in a way that is coming across as constructive, and I'm at risk of it not coming across as constructive. So I want people to understand where I'm coming from. Okay, I absolutely welcome the work that's been done by the Working Party, and I think that there's a lot of good things that have come from it. I guess it's transformational, so I understand what we're doing. What my concern is I guess around some of the detail, which we're sort of dealing with here, but also the fact that where this is being led from, and absolutely no disrespect to Councillor Knight, Councillor Fage, and those involved in the working group, because they've actually driven this and are working really hard to make things happen. So please don't take this in the wrong way. I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that once we have a town centre operations manager working at full speed, that we're doing things through the officers. If that's not the case, if it is the case, then no problem. But it just, to me, just feels a little bit led by councillors rather than the other way around. And I would hope that we get to a point where these things are being led by the officers with the support of the councillors in due course. So please don't take it the wrong way. If it's come across that way, I certainly don't want it to be that way, but just very conscious of the the input you've had to make and have made, Councillor Page, Councillor Knight, and the working group, that we want to try and get away from that if we can.
Mr. Tarrant?
Just wanted to alleviate Councillor Foster's observations. Just to say that the working group was a member officer working group, and I fully support and endorse the transformation opportunities that are being discussed here. What we are doing here, we are doing something which is agile. We're trying something, and we're going to give it a go, and we're going to see if it works. And actually, I think I would support that approach, and I think having our contractors on board to ignite some of that transformation and to look at things in a different way is a very positive thing. I think that the officers of the council are working closely with the contractors, and they're getting on well with the contractors, and they're mutually supporting each other. What the contractors are not there to do is to give operational day-to-day management to any of the employees of the council. Indeed, they're not doing that. We're working in partnership with them. But just to reiterate, I think the relationships are good, and let's hope that this transformation journey has a positive impact for all of the town. So I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you understand where I was coming from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Councillor Pullinger?
Yeah, so I think to support that point that Mr. Tarrant's just made, and I think this is also in supportive of what Councillor Foster was just saying, and the point I made earlier around we at council approve the level of fees, but it be an operational decision as to the exact timing of bringing them in. I think that should still be the course of action, rather than bringing it back to unnecessarily, in my opinion, for council or the committee to formally agree the implementation date. So I'd like to propose that as an amendment, unless Councillor Fage wishes to backtrack again and put it that way. I'd like to propose that as a formal amendment to the proposal, that's the way for the approval of the fees.
Okay, well, can I come in before Councillor Fage answers? Because I thought we'd got to the point where the pitch fees, in principle, are being agreed tonight, but that the implementation of them will be agreed by either TCM or Town Council, with the clarification of the farmers markets and any other specialist markets when it comes back to council. That's what I thought we'd agreed, or what we were coming to. Councillor Fage, over to you.
That's fine. I've listened to members. The view of members is that we need more sign off from TCM and council, and doing this properly and doing it by the book. Then we need more of that, not less of that. And so if the view is we want to bring it back to council or TCM, we've got plenty of meetings. It's a one item, it's a very quick agenda item potentially. So that remains. So I won't be accepting Councillor Pullinger's amendment. Sorry.
So I'm now going to say what I think council is being asked to agree. So it was a 4-part recommendation. The first one was to adopt the strategy for 4 months. That was the amendment. So for 4 months, that the pitch fees are agreed in principle, but the implementation and some of the detail will come back to whichever meeting is appropriate, either TCM or council. The third one was that our policy needs updating, but if there are any queries in the next few weeks, the strategy that's on the agenda tonight will take precedence over the older policy. And the fourth one was no vans on the market except those that are being traded from, that pitches are either 10 by 10 or twice that amount, and that I've written down here communications to traders. Help me, Councillor Fay.
It's via Meg Green and Hannah Abel.
Okay. Right. On the basis of that, all those in favour of that proposal, please. That's 14. 15, I think now. I think somebody's changed their mind. I think that's unanimous. So it's been a long discussion, but I think we've got to something that's acceptable to everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 9 o'clock, but we'll press on. The next item is remote meetings. and call for evidence. And I think, Mr. Choppin, you wish to introduce this, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I will introduce it, but in fact, this agenda item really falls into two parts. One is for the council to consider a response, if you wish to respond to the letter from the Minister for Local Government, which there's a link on the agenda. I would refrain from commenting on that because I think, you know, it is a response that members should make, but it does seem to be slanted. That's the only point I would make towards principal councils and the way, and it was written to the leaders of the principal councils. The members may wish to take that into account if you consider a response. The second part is to do with the fact that it is very likely now that there won't be an extension to the current legislation. And I know there's a pending court case which the current legislation is being challenged in the sense that they're trying to get a ruling that the 1972 Act does actually allow for indefinite implementation of remote meetings, but that's sub judice, and I think we've got to work on the basis that that will not be upheld in the court. But I think, Madam Mayor, what I would suggest is that members consider the content of the letter from the Minister first and make your decision as to whether you wish to take a view and respond. And then I will say a little bit more about where I have got to in basic planning for reverting to in-person meetings should that happen after the beginning of next month, the 7th of May.
Well, I would prefer that we knew what the issues are likely to be before we discuss the minister's statement. So I would prefer to hear from you what the issues are that you're coming up against, please.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to do that. Thank you for allowing me to do that. The situation is we have to plan for the fact that we're likely to be working against the law if we don't have in-person meetings. There are a number of, if you like, physical operational constraints which have to be overcome. And the first one really is the dates, because, and this actually is referred to in the minister's letter, because the legislation says that after the 7th of May we cannot have remote meetings, but it's not until the 17th of May that gatherings which would actually allow that would be allowed under the government's steps towards removing the lockdown. So I know that you are considering at the next proper meeting, well, the annual meeting of council in May, the calendar. One of the things which might be affected is at the moment the scheduled meeting of the personnel committee, which happens after the 7th but before the 17th of May. But you're going to look at that calendar in detail and make your decision on that at the May meeting anyway. So that's something that can be deferred. I'm not asking for any decisions tonight on that. Well, what I would bring to your attention is that it would seem to be quite difficult in the council chamber as it stands to have a meeting where all the councillors could be easily and safely accommodated under the COVID distancing restrictions and social distancing and so forth. I've been exploring with Node, our IT people, to see if we could have some method of actually having a physical meeting. But it may be, and members, you've got to consider this, although you may not wish to make a decision tonight, as to whether or not we can hold a meeting in more than one room within the council chamber. Anybody that joins a meeting remotely from, like we are at the moment, would not be permitted to vote because they would not, under the law as it stands at the moment, be considered to be present at a meeting. But if you're present in the council offices and the meeting is called in the council offices, you will be present whether or not you're physically in that room or in an adjacent room. So we're looking at some sort of hybrid at the moment, where members who would prefer not to be in the council chamber for whatever reason could still join the meeting by being in the council offices. That requires some technology, and NODA in the process of drawing up a specification for that. Obviously there will be a cost to that, and I think we're talking perhaps in the region of maybe £4,000 or £5,000 in terms of hardware and facilities to provide that. The letter from the minister also refers to the fact that members might want to consider having fewer meetings and delegating more to officers. It also mentions in that letter delegation to councillors, but that's in principal councillors, where councillors have executive powers, which doesn't happen in our sector, and in fact it's not part of the legal structure. We still have a committee system, and that's what we have. So that would be difficult as well. The other issue is relating to members of the public, and again, the minister's letter says as far as possible they could join remotely, but of course we might want to put a facility to allow members of the public who wish to attend the meetings in person to be allowed to do so. I don't see how they can be excluded, but the numbers may have to be very limited, and I can imagine people congregating sort of in the vestibule rather than in the council chamber in order to sort of listen in like that, and that might not be very practical. So there are a number of difficulties. They are being explored, they are being discussed, and I'm hoping that by the time we get to May, we'll have a formal proposal along the lines that I've outlined, some form of hybrid meeting, which would be on the one hand legal, and two, on the other hand, COVID secure, if I can use that phrase, and at the same time allowing for maximum access by members who wish to attend and ensuring a quorum, and by members of the public who wish to either observe or attend the meeting and make their comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, because I think that's very useful in clarifying the issues for our sector as opposed to principal authorities. I've got people indicating to speak, so I'll go to Councillor Strawn, Councillor Pullinger, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note Mr. Truppin's comments. I think what needs to be carried out according to the guidance is a risk assessment is carried out, because I would regard our council meeting as a business meeting, not as a social meeting. It is there to run the business of the council, therefore it is a business meeting, therefore it is work, therefore just because we're not paid, it doesn't mean that we're not working. So I think we can knock that one on the head quite quickly. In terms of distancing, when we interviewed our town clerk for the post, we had the council members in the council chamber, all of them. That is quite feasible. I think with the desks there as they are at the moment, no, that's probably would create difficulties because of the spacing, but it is, in my view, quite possible to carry that out with the appropriate distancing of 2 metres. That's part of the risk assessment, and we should look at that on the positive basis. The idea of splitting into 2 rooms and being present, if you were signing a will, you might be in the same building, but it doesn't mean you're present in the same. If you're not present in the same room, you're not actually witnessing anything. So that, I think, is goes out of the window. I think the difficulty with the minister's letter is implying that it's for principal authorities where they have different rules and powers of delegation. That does not apply, as far as I'm aware, to councils of our nature. I don't think that's feasible. I think we do need the physical meetings. I think it's important that in the future that we have made access available so that the public can see what has been happening, even though if they're not present in the same way as they have during the lockdown by Zoom, and we have. But it's quite clear that the law is not going to change before May, and we therefore need to prepare for physical meetings. I do appreciate there will be circumstances where individuals may not be able to be present, but I think that at the moment, instead of looking for the problems, we need to find the solutions.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Pullinger, then Councillor Thomas, then Councillor Grant-Fage and Councillor Alban. Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, in relation to the letter from the Secretary of State that were, so it was actually myself who forwarded this to the clerk and asked for it to come to a future agenda for us to respond. Although that letter itself is aimed and directed to principal councils, the preamble and the information on the wider website around this is also aimed at all authorities, including down to town and parish councils. And in fact, if you look at the to go and answer the questionnaire, there is a definite option to select that you're responding on behalf of a parish or town council. However, the timeline in terms of responding to that call for evidence is 12 weeks from, I think it was the 25th of April or something when it was launched. So my proposal would be actually that we defer consideration of a response to a future meeting to give us much more time to consider that, and perhaps to look at, so we can look at each of the individual questions on there and how we might respond, having gone through the process that we are now needing to go through to prepare for after the 7th of May. In relation to the second part, so interesting to hear some of the suggested ideas for Mr. Tuppin. I think as Councillor Strawn has said, I think certainly in terms of members and the officers, I think it would be advisable for us to, where possible, be all in the same room and to actually be able to take part in the same physical space in the chamber. I think there is potentially some merit for the use of the meeting room, for example, for members of the public to observe the meeting, and should they wish to speak in the meeting, to then be invited to come into the chamber to address council, as sort of another approach maybe to the hybrid. One thing that I think is really important, and I think as a council we've really got the benefit of over the last 12 months or a bit less, is I think the increased transparency and engagement with members of the public by having the meetings streamed online, whether that's through members joining the Zoom meetings online or being able to observe proceedings on YouTube. So I'd also like to make a proposal that we continue to live stream our meetings on YouTube even when we return face to face.
Could I add to what you just said by saying that NALC, our National Association of Local Councils, has been making strong representations to the Minister on behalf of our sector, but without any success so far. I just want to put that out into the meeting. You've made a proposal, which I think, if I may say so from the chair, we shouldn't be considering at the moment. I think your original proposal to defer means we should defer when we know how things might be done and what the cost of them is. So we may well wish to consider live streaming, and that's fine, but you're actually making a proposal that would then tie our hands, because it would be in place for 6 months when we don't know how we might do it, what it would cost us, particularly, you know, whether we need more than one camera, whether one camera would do it, how the sound system would work. So I'm a little bit concerned from the chair about you actually making that formal proposal at the moment, Councillor Pullinger. Please do come back.
So just to be clear, that my deferring was specifically in relation to consideration of the response to the call for evidence, not in relation to this item, in relation to our preparations. But I am willing to amend the wording of my proposal to say that that we would intend that we continue to live stream and ask the officers to investigate how that can be made possible, and to come back with a firm proposal of how to deliver that.
Thank you very much for that. I think that makes sense. Then when we've got all the facts, we can make the necessary decisions. Now, if I'm remembering right, I've got Councillor Thomas, then Councillor Fage, then Councillor Alban. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I think as Councillor Pullinger said, we've got an opportunity to keep a bit of transparency. We wouldn't have thought of doing this before, but now we've got it working. Zoom works. We can have people looking in. We can get them on the meetings on YouTube, and we've got once in a lifetime chance of making the council more open and making it available for more people and getting more people involved. And I'm sure there's a bit more understanding of what the council does and how we do it, or how we have to do it. And that goes a long way, I think. So I would have seconded Councillor Pullinger's proposal if there was one.
Well, I think he's
of a hybrid system.
One. It's just changed slightly.
Yes.
I think you can still second it because it's intend to continue. And
I wasn't quite clear what it was, to be honest with you, in the end. I would like it repeated. I think I know what he said, but I think it bears repeating.
Okay, well, I'll come back to that in a minute, if I may,
Yeah.
because we've now got that proposal on the table. Councillor Fage.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful we're not tying our hands. I don't disagree with the proposal, by the way. I just think we need to be careful we're not tying our hands with having a very expensive way of meeting for something that could potentially only be needed up until the 21st of June. We could, assuming everything unlocks as anticipated, we could be back to normal by then, I presume. I like the suggestion around delaying responding to the minister. I don't think it's a great use of our staff's time. If we're not getting anywhere at higher authorities, then why would we? One thing we could consider is actually, if we are looking for more space, we do have the Orchard Centre and potentially a new depot at some point as well, if we wanted to host a meeting in a slightly more spacious building. Councillor Frank Foster's raising his eyebrows, so maybe isn't supportive of that as chairman of PLOS, but those are things which potentially the Orchard Centre, I don't know how busy it is on a Tuesday evening, but maybe we need not to make a firm decision this evening, but wait until we have a couple of clear suggestions. I'm sure Mr. Truppin has heard feedback from us. And actually, I think there maybe needs to be an informal meeting of councillors just to take soundings on this, because appreciate, it is subjective. Everybody has their own view as to how comfortable they would and wouldn't be in a chamber. And, it's not something that everybody wants to share, discussed in this way. I do think we need to make a decision as a council at some point, but I think a bit of an informal discussion there might be helpful.
Madam Mayor, I need to just interject on a completely related but unrelated matter, that I'm advised by the meetings administrator that this Zoom call is due to expire in 15 minutes time. I'm not quite sure how that operates, because I don't think we've had a Zoom meeting this long, but I am advised that there's 15 minutes left. So
I think it'll carry on.
We have.
Not applicable, Philip. It will
Okay.
just run naturally, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, now, wait a minute. I've got Councillor Alban, then I've got Councillor Mark Foster, and then I've got Councillor Knight. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I think this is unfortunate that we're being put in this position at this time. I think it's pretty premature to be forcing councils to meet in person. That the future is not certain. There are various experts and even the Prime Minister suggesting there might be another wave coming. So I would hope that the government might reconsider and make time to use whatever instrument that they can to extend these regulations and not make it illegal to not meet in person. But given what we have in front of us, if we're forced to in-person meetings, my concern would be the members of the public being present, because we can't really anticipate how many there might be. There are some occasions when the whole council chamber has been full with when there's been a controversial item being discussed. So having members of the public there, it's just too difficult to manage, I think. So I think we would need to have a mechanism in place to allow members of the public to contribute to the meetings remotely. I think that needs to be considered seriously, because the chamber is just not capable of safely accommodating the numbers of people that are potentially going to want to be there. And that's all I have to say at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Mark Foster and then Councillor Mark Knight.
Since I raised my hand, the points I was going to make have already been made, so I have no intention of duplicating it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So I agree. I regret that we're being forced to move potentially directly to in-person meetings, and I appreciate the complexities with hybrids. I would just like to support the points that other councillors have made in relation to streaming the meetings and add a bit more detail. One of our meetings has had a total of 1,200 views on YouTube, and the average is 40 to 50 views, and indeed there are 2 people watching live right now. So I think it is very important that we try to maintain that live streaming capability. I think that's been a success. It's been quite useful for us as members to look at after the meetings as well, to see exactly what's been agreed. And since we have that continuous history now, going back to when we first started on Zoom, I hope it should be much easier from a technology perspective to simply live stream in a single direction. Then it should not cost thousands of pounds to be able to do that fairly easily with equipment that we have. So I hope that's something we can maintain.
Okay, Mr. Truppin, you want to come back in?
As if I may, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that there are 2 sort of distinct strands to this. One is, if you like, the legality, and second is what people would like to see. And I think I'll take both of those away. But in terms of the legality, the presence of members to be in a meeting physically and to vote is something which would be required as the law stands and as it is interpreted at the moment by the government. And the presence of the public is something which is not required, but the council meetings have to be accessible to the public. And indeed, again, in the minister's letter, he refers to remote access by the public. So I think the streaming and those issues, if members want to take that course of action for the public, is still something which can happen, and there still can be interaction, because the public are not participating in the meeting as such. They are attending the meeting, they are speaking if they're being invited to speak, but of course they don't have a vote. But it is the speaking and voting by you as councillors which is the bit which is covered or not covered, as it were, by the 72 Act as it is interpreted in terms of remote meetings. And that is why live on-site physical meetings have to be reintroduced. That's how I understand the law. So the 2 are related, but they are also separate issues to be addressed. One is practical and one is legal.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Well, I think, Councillor Pullinger, your proposal is to defer any response to the call for evidence, but to say that we do intend to continue the transparency of streaming. Is that right? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, and just to ask officers to investigate and return with proposals for the same.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So all those in favour of Councillor Pullinger's proposal, please. That's 12, so that's definitely passed. Right, I have to say that I am running out of juice on my computer, so if I suddenly go, I'm afraid Councillor Fage is going to have to take over. I'm moving on to items for information, and the first one is Central Bedfordshire, temporary closure of the Bridleway.
Note it.
We happy with that? Thank you. And then the rail crossing diversion order.
Also, oh, sorry.
I have a concern with this.
Yes, go on.
Unfortunately, I don't have it. I'm just trying to find the right page. So I don't quite understand the reason for clause 1A, the purpose of which, to my reading, seems to be that if the bridge has not been constructed by the 31st of November 2024 for any reason, the existing crossing will be stopped up anyway. So I can't see any other reason why that clause would be there, but that concerns me. I don't know what other members think.
Well, the date of it being built by is because of the HIF regulation, isn't it? Because it's being paid for by the HIF. I don't understand why they would stop up the level crossing anyway, but of course that's what Network Rail have wanted to do for a long while.
That would be my reading of it, and of course these large projects do have a habit sometimes of being delayed for whatever reason. So I see that as a concern.
Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, I mean, there is a concern there. I think a couple of points, though. I guess ultimately this has already been sealed and is as is, so we've probably got limited come back to it at this point in any case. But my understanding is that if you read clause 1 in conjunction with clauses 2 and 3, and not in isolation, clauses 2 and 3 require Network Rail to firstly create I think clause 2 creates the new bridleway where the new footbridge is going to be, and clause 3 requires Network Rail to actually provide that footbridge. So when you read it as a whole, then I think everything is probably covered. I think ultimately, if it was to be a situation where the bridge wasn't in place, that Network Rail will be liable to provide an alternative route, which may well be a temporary order to keep the crossing open. But I guess we're probably getting ahead of ourselves, preempting what may or may not happen in that case.
May I propose we write to get that confirmed?
Well, I was going to suggest, Councillor Knight, that we ask for clarification on this at the next joint committee, which is later this month, because
Perfect.
We're supposed to be having gift updates. And I think then when we've got Central Beds officers present, we can ask for clarification, and hopefully Councillor Mark Foster would make sure that's on the agenda. I think that's probably easier than writing.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, right. We're now on to a public open session again, and this is a chance for people to raise any issue that's to do with the council business, not just things on the agenda. So if any members of the public would like to speak, would they please raise their electronic hand? I'm not getting any indication, so I'm assuming nobody wishes to speak. In which case, we do have to pass the resolution that it's advisable in the public interest that the public and press are excluded while an exempt item is discussed. So can I ask colleagues now? Thank you. Can I ask colleagues now to move to the exempt meeting, please? Thank you very much.